All right, why don't we kick off our webinar for this evening? First, I'd like to welcome everybody. We have a great crowd this evening. My name is Greg Mooney. I'm the Senior VP of Marketing for Treasures Briefcase, and I'm happy to present another Treasures Briefcase fall webinar event. We've got 9 webinars scheduled for the fall season that will provide current and prospective users with a simple and straightforward review of key topics that nonprofit treasurers need to know. We've got more webinars scheduled for 2016 with subjects that will help you keep up with the changes in nonprofits, as well as Treasures Briefcase itself. Just a reminder, all are recorded and be visited on our website. So now let me introduce Dave Lauer, our speaker for tonight. Dave is a principal with Treasures Briefcase and a CPA with 31 years of tax and accounting experience. Dave knows your pain, as he's been a volunteer for multiple organizations over the last 25 years, and in doing so, recognized a large gap in the support and resources available for those who want to lend their time to local, small, and typically all volunteer organizations, hence Treasurers Briefcase. So Dave, why don't you take it away?
Okay, thanks, Greg. Tonight's goal ultimately is to do a quick tour of Treasurers Briefcase, hitting briefly on most functions, but focusing mainly on 4 aspects of the software. If you feel we're moving a little fast, keep in mind these webinars are always recorded and it would be located on our website. Additionally, soon we'll short 1 to 5 minute videos of our software. Okay, so tonight we're really going to focus on showing you how to track revenues and expenses through our software, to illustrate how to electronically manage your organization's checkbook, and to ease the pain of preparing for your monthly meetings using our report writer, to teach you how to store important documents safely and securely in the cloud, and then finally give you a little time for some questions that I might be able to answer for you. Let's talk a little bit about the reason we developed Treasurers Briefcase. As a CPA trying to work with small nonprofits, we often found traditional accounting software was either too complex or too expensive, or sometimes just really didn't meet the needs of small nonprofit organizations. Most traditional off-the-shelf bookkeeping software is not designed for nonprofits. So we set out to create a solution that allows users to manage their financial accounts with complete transparency, have the ability to produce standardized reports, help you organize and safely store your documents, be able to easily file your tax returns with your government organizations, state and federal, most importantly, seamlessly transition from treasurer to treasurer, and last, secure your information for use by future volunteers. The first area we will focus on is the idea of tracking your revenues and expenses. When it comes to nonprofits, this particular slide is pretty accurate. The fact is the IRS is watching you. So much so that they actually dictate how you are to track your activity, creating a special tax return in the process called the 990. They require you to track activity by function and by type. We therefore designed Treasurers Briefcase to comply with this IRS format so you can track your activity properly. I'm going to just step back for a second and say we specifically designed this software for small nonprofits. Very large nonprofits that are responsible for grant reporting or full fund accounting will have to use a higher level software. This software is designed for your typical boosters, PTOs, PTAs, little leagues, soccer leagues, and so forth. At this point, I'm going to go to the actual Treasurers Briefcase software. And we're going to demonstrate or talk a little bit more about this idea of categories. Hopefully, all of you have already received your login information and begun using the software. If you haven't, I'm going to bring you back to the main menu. This is what your main menu looks like. And on your main menu, under the Settings tab, you'll see a section called Categories. What we've done is broken down these categories exactly the way the IRS prefers to see them. broken down basically between the functions. Your functions are fundraising, program expenses and revenues, administrative and operations, contribution, gifts and grants, and investment income. If you ever looked at a 990, you will see these categories mimic exactly what the 990 requests from you. You'll see each one of these red buttons signifies we can expand the category. When you first sign up for an account, we give you the option to use one of our templates. Those templates, it's important to note, they're not static. They can be changed. You can add accounts, delete accounts whenever you want, as often as you want. So for example, I'm going to show you how easy it is under the fundraising category to actually add a category. I'm just going to click on add category, and we're going to create a category. This is for the football booster. We're going to create a category called beef and beer fundraiser. I'm just going to click the plus button to add that category. That category, that fundraising category, has now been added to my system. If I want to remove a category, it's just as easy. I suspect the football club probably is not going to be involved in the book fair, so I'm going to get rid of that so I don't see it on my reports in the future. All you do is highlight it, and you can move it over to the do not use category. I'm going to save that activity. And you'll notice these are all pre-populated with your typical standard categories that you would use most often. For instance, under the administrative category, bank fees, insurance, legal and professional fees. I want to spend some time just defining the categories so you have a good feel for what these categories represent. Fundraising is just that. That's when you're out there doing the various fundraisers to generate proceeds to use to fund your program. The program ultimately is why you exist. So if I'm a Little League, I exist to put on baseball programs in the community. If I'm a PTO, I exist to further the educational experience of the children and the teachers. Anything related to those programs would be considered program expenses. So again, using the analogy of a Little League, if I host a tournament, the costs of creating that tournament are all program expenses because it's a cost of running our program. Fundraising, as I said, is just that. That would be your typical bake sales, your candy sales, your bingo nights, all the various fundraisers that exist in an organization. Contribution, gifts, and grants, that kind of speaks for itself. So that would be your typical dues for your club if you're a booster club. Registration fees for a Little League. It would also be corporate donations, public donations would all fall into the contribution, gifts, and grants category. Again, we've designed this. It mimics exactly the IRS required format. I want to point out in our resource section, if you go to your home page, the actual home page of Treasures Briefcase, under the resource section, you'll find some information on understanding categories. It details a little bit more clearly the difference between the various categories. So once you learn how to categorize expenses and income when it comes in, how do you get that into our system? The way we do that in our system is actually through a check register. Your check register is no different than that manual check register we're all used to, that we've been using for years. It may take you a little while to get used to the idea, but the reality is, once you learn how to use Treasures Briefcase, you'll never need a manual system for recording your activity. Everything will be housed right in Treasures Briefcase for you to see, for your president to see, for any board member to see. So let's go back to the software and actually show you how to enter activity in our checking account. First thing I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to show you how easy it is to create a new checking account. So you would go to Settings. I'm going to click on Checking Accounts. And I'm going to add a checking account. I'm going to load my starting balance in that checking account. I'm going to add that checking account. So at this point, I have two checking accounts in the system. One is for this webinar purposes, what we call account one. And if I had a savings account or another account that was specifically for fundraising, I could switch between accounts whenever I want. So I'm going to go back to the checking screen. I'm going to go to new transactions. And you'll see this is just basically an image of what looks like a check. But within the screen, you can do a lot of different things. First of all, it's telling you what checking account I'm in. And it's telling you my current balance in that checking account. Right now, we have $3,030 in that checking account. That number right there would be the same number you would see in your manual check register after your last entry. You'll see on the screen, we also have the ability to record a check, record a deposit, record other in and other out, or actually even void a check. So what I want to do right now is give you an example of how easy the software is to use. So in the first example, we're going to assume Treasures Briefcase sent their bill, and now I'm going to finally pay the Treasures Briefcase bill. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to create, you'll notice I've already pre-populated, and we'll show you how to do contacts shortly, but Treasures Briefcase is already in the system. We issued them a check for $179.95. And let me get rid of that noise for you folks. Sorry about that. Got some feedback here. Okay. At this point, I'm going to post this to accounting software. Now, you'll notice I see it's not popping up, so I can actually add a category on the fly. So I'm going to click Add. And I'm going to add a category, accounting software. Now, again, what function did that fall under? That's purely an administrative function. So we're going to put that under the administrative category, and we're going to go ahead and add that. And if I want to put a memo in here, I could. At this point, I can just save the transaction, and we are done. What I didn't show you before was, or talk about before, was notice up here, every user of Treasures Briefcase is given, or every organization is given their own email address specific to Treasures Briefcase. This is purely so you can email documents to yourself or tell vendors to email documents to yourself. So previously today, I emailed the bill for Treasures Briefcase to webinar@treasuresbriefcase.com. And you'll see later when we talk about the briefcase, the end result of that. I'm also going to show you another example, a little bit more complicated example. And in this example, the president submitted their reimbursement request for all the expenses they incurred during the month. So we're going to enter in. Now this system now recognizes this vendor has not, or contact has not been set up. This is a person. It typically will recognize whether it's a person or a company. And I'm going to click Add to add that person. In this case, we're going to give her a check for $25.85. Now, notice all the different various spots you can load information in here. Obviously, the contact name, the amount, but also there's a field down here for. In this example, I'm going to use down here, I'm going to say reimburse for what we call out-of-pocket expenses in accounting, in accounting. And now I'm going to go ahead and spread that out. Well, she incurred tolls while doing business for the organization. So I'm going to create, and again, it's not there to show you. You can do quick add. That would be a pure administrative function. And in this case, the tolls were only $10.25. Now in this memo field, I can do a couple things. First thing I'm going to show you is in this field, technically, the charge was, in this case, the New Jersey Turnpike is who Sue paid. Again, it's looking, I'm going to tell it it's a company. Under the memo, I'm going to say trip to meeting. So pretty much everything you need, it can be fit into this one screen. You'll notice I'm $15 short, $15.60 short. So I'm going to split this transaction into multiple expenses. She also went to the office supply store Staples. And that was what she spent, $15.60. I'm going to go ahead and save this. So that was an example of how to split a check when it's to multiple categories. So you may go to BJ's or Walmart to buy a bunch of stuff. Some of it could be office supplies, some of it could be for the fundraising, some of it could be for programs. So you have the ability to split it out among all the various categories. Let's look at a deposit example. In this case, there was a deposit of $1,691. And it was from the concession stand for the football game. And gate fees that came in were $1,100. Again, it's telling me I'm short, so I have to split. Food concession sales of $690. Now you're going to notice that I've now created a situation where it's more. So I'm going to continue, meaning I have a negative number. They also had 50-50 sales. There's no category for that. I can add a category. And that's a fundraising category. So again, you just find your master category and post it to the proper category. In this case, they actually brought in $100. And they actually paid the referees. On behalf of the football team. I'm going to add that. Again, now this is a program expense. It's why you exist, to support the football program. So I tried to give you an example of every possible scenario that would occur. Now you notice it's negative because we actually paid money out. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and save the transaction. And now we posted that deposit. I want to show you, you can review all of your old transactions by going up and clicking transactions. And you can see, from your drop down, you can pick you can pick the last 180 days. You also have the ability to search. You can search by company name. You can search by amount. So for instance, if I just wanted to see every check that was written for $5,000, it finds every check written for $5,000 or a deposit for $5,000 in this case. Again, you can, in this case, last 10 days. So you get the search. You also have the ability, once you go into this screen, in transaction screen, to edit. So if you made a mistake on a check or a transaction, you have the ability to edit that transaction. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to void a check. I realized the Office Max check was never needed. I'm going to go to edit, and I'm going to go ahead and void that check. And I'm going to save it. So it tells the treasurer, tells the president when they're looking at the system that that check has been voided. Okay. We showed you how to edit. So now you've done all that work. Let's assume you've understand categories properly. You spread everything to the proper categories. The month passes, and now it's time to do your bank reconciliation. I'm often surprised how often adults don't actually do a bank reconciliation of their own personal checking accounts. But if you're a treasurer for a booster club or a PTO or a PTA, it's probably one of the most important functions you do. This is the way you'll catch your mistakes. This is the way you'll catch deposits or transactions that weren't recorded. In simple math, as we all know, the bank reconciliation, you start with your ending bank statement balance, you add back any outstanding deposits, you subtract any outstanding checks, and in a perfect world, that should reconcile to your checkbook balance in your checkbook system. Let's go out to Treasures Briefcase to take a look at that process. In the checking function, you can actually reconcile your checkbook right through the software. In this case, I got my bank statement. Let me just go through the fields. This is showing you the previous balance. It's also showing me what account I'm reconciling. I could have selected the other account. I'm in my Webinar 1 account. From my bank statement, I'm going to show the total deposits per my bank statement, my total disbursements per my bank statement, the ending balance from my bank statement, and then my period end for my bank statement. Let's see if it'll take. Okay, now what the system just did, it's important to note this. What the system just did is it went back and it said, okay, what checks were written or deposits were recorded that were between that period, September 30th through October 31st. And it listed them all for you. So a little pointer for you, you got to make sure you post your dates properly when you record your activity. Otherwise, you'll find a check doesn't appear here and you can't figure out why. It's probably because you didn't do your date properly. In this case, I'm viewing my bank statement, and now I'm just going to mark off those things that cleared. The $5,000 deposit cleared, and you'll notice this check mark signifies that on the deposit side, we're clean, we're perfect. On the disbursement side, what we're going to do is from my bank statement, I'm clearing everything that cleared. Here's that old check, remember, that I voided, that was a 0. And it's now telling me I'm $149. Oops, I didn't want to do that. I'm $30 off. So what it's telling me is you've cleared $1,870 of transactions, but I'm $30 off. I'm looking at my bank statement. I recognize the bank charged me a $30 fee this month. You can, on the fly, right from this module, actually add a transaction. So I'm going to go add a transaction. It's an other out. I'm sure Bank of America's, yep, okay. $30. Again, I'm going to post it to the category. Bank charges, I'm sure that's in there. And you can put a memo and save it. At this point, that now appears in my bank reconciliation and I can clear it. Once I clear it, you'll notice I got my check mark again. It's telling me my reconciliation works. I'm going to click on complete reconciliation. Tell the system, yes, go ahead and complete the reconciliation. What the system just did behind the scenes is actually printed my bank reconciliation. It printed it to my briefcase, and we're going to go over the briefcase shortly. So you can see doing a bank rec, as long as you keep your entries clean, stay on top of it on a monthly basis, doing a bank reconciliation is actually a very simple process. We're getting toward the end here, and one of the things I want to talk about is probably the scariest thing for non-accountants, non-bookkeepers, and that is preparing for that monthly meeting. It's human nature. We all want to look our best when we're presenting our product, if you will, to our board. So I feel your pain, and that's why we developed this software, is to try to make it as simple and fast and easy as we possibly can. I'll tell you from my own personal history, the first group that I volunteered with, when I went to the meeting, I was shocked when the treasurer presented the minutes or presented the treasurer's report by looking at a handwritten piece of paper that he had in his hand and did not deliver it to the rest of the audience. Needless to say, when everybody left, they were questioning the validity of his product. So our goal really was to design this in a way that makes you look as thorough and transparent as you possibly can, and looking basically on the ball for your members. So we're going to go back to the report function. This function, the reality is every time we go to a conference to show our product, this is where we get the most oohs and ahs. I want to show you how easy it is to print a report. As long as you've done all your work ahead of time, how easy it is to print a report. First, I want to note all these lightning bolt reports are what we call quick reports. What these quick reports do is create a report based on the previous month's activity. So I can go look at that report. and it's showing me last month's report. I want to go to custom reports for a second. So quick reports are just that. They're quick reports for the last month's activity. I want to talk briefly about what each report is. The activity report is, in effect, your checkbook register. That's a printout of all checkbook activity for any given period. So if I wanted to do a report for the current fiscal year of my activity, I'm going to go ahead and generate the report. Notice it's selected. In this case, I could have selected one of two checking accounts. I'm going to generate the report, and I can view the report. And you'll notice basically it's your check register showing your opening balance, your ins, your outs, and what your final total for the month so far is. Budget variance report, we didn't load a budget, but a budget variance report is just that. It'll show the actual versus budget and tell your members what your variance is. The budget report is just a copy of your memorialized budget. Category listing. This one is a new treasurer just starting out, is one you may want to print for yourself. And it's just going to be a list of all the categories that are currently listed in the system. So you can go through this report, and if there's categories on here you just don't need, you can go back, as I showed you before, you can go back to settings, categories, and hide those categories. Category detail shows you the actual detail within the category for any given period that you choose. Contact report is just that, a list of all your contacts. Executive board report is a slightly different report than the treasurer's report. It gives a little more detail. Sometimes some executive boards like to see this report because it gives check numbers and a little more detailed information. Fundraising report is just that. It will detail, I'll do the current fiscal year. I don't have a lot posted here, but let's see what pops up. What it'll show you is for any given fundraiser, however many fundraisers you have, in this case we just have two, the concession stand, it shows the revenues that came in and the expenses that went out. I started doing some ad book program expenses, but during the year you'll be able to print this out and give it to your committee so they can see how they're doing with their fundraisers. Reconciliation, I've showed you that, and now we're going to actually show you an example of the report shortly. 1099 vendor report at year end in December. As you all know, if you pay a service provider more than $600, you're going to have to give them 1099s. Despite the fact that you're a nonprofit, you still have to issue 1099s. So this report helps you gather that information so you can give it to your accountant or have the treasurer do the 1099s themselves. And then the report that everybody uses the most is the treasurer's report. Again, I'm going to use current fiscal year. Notice I have the ability to do a PDF report. I have the ability to do it as an Excel report. I also have the ability to change the color of my titles if I ever want. We didn't show you how to do this because we had limited time in this webinar, but you can also upload your logo so it appears on your reports. So I'm going to go ahead and generate this report. We'll view it. And I want to spend a little time just going over the report because, again, this one is the one most often used. You'll notice it mimics the IRS required format. It lists your contributions, gifts, and grants that came in, your fundraising revenues that came in, your program revenues, if there were any that came in, and then lists all your expenses broken down again by function: administrative, fundraising, programs. It tells you what your net activity for the month was. In this case, we were up $4,500 for the month. We started with $300, therefore we have $4,800 at month end. And its components are $4,600 in the webinar account 1, and in this case, $200 is in account 2. So that's how easy it is to print, create, and distribute, when we'll show you that, your treasurer's report. One of the great functions you have here, notice down here, you have the ability to view the report, which I've been doing all along. You have the ability to file these reports, and we're going to show you that. So I'm going to go ahead and file this treasurer's report. And you also have the ability to email the report. If I click on this, I can email this report to whomever I want. I can also pre-populate who my board is. And I can just, with one click, add the board, and it'll send it out to the board members. And I can just go ahead and hit send, and it'll send that out to the various board members that need those reports. So you can see creating reports is a pretty simple process. Again, as long as you've entered all the information based on the proper categories and stay on top of your stuff on a monthly basis. The last personal story I'll tell you is ultimately the reason we created Treasures Briefcase, and that is I signed up to be the treasurer for a very large little league that has a very long history, and I was excited to be a part of it, and I couldn't wait to get started. And when the treasurer called me up and said he wanted to see me, he came to my house with 6 bankers boxes full of information. And it was unknown to me, but those banker boxes got passed from treasurer to treasurer, from year to year, and they had history back to 1950s. Interestingly, when I went through those banker boxes, there were no tax returns, there was no IRS determination letter, there were no, in our case, New Jersey charities registration returns, and I couldn't even find a legalized games of chance license. So despite keeping all those records, they still were missing the most important records. So how do we do this in Treasures Briefcase? We actually have this briefcase function. In the briefcase function, first of all, you'll notice when you guys use it, it's going to ask you for a PIN. I've already loaded into the system, so I already put my PIN in. It requires a PIN. You'll be given that PIN if you haven't already. When you sign up, you're given the PIN. And the reason we do that, it's just an extra layer of security. So if somebody did get into your system, they wouldn't be able to look at your documents because they don't have the PIN. Now, when I clicked on Briefcase, it brought me to what's called our briefcase. Notice on the side here, unfiled documents. This document here was the bill I emailed to myself. It automatically gets deposited by the system into unfiled documents. So at this point, I can move this document to various spots. At this point, I'm just going to move it to my documents. Now I've taken it out of unfiled and I've put it to my documents. It's sitting here. The Treasures Briefcase bill is sitting here. If I wanted to view it, I could click on view. I also have the ability to add what's called tags to these documents. Tags, in effect, I can create. This just says invoice. So now I can create a new tag called TBC if I wanted to. I'm going to save this, and I'll show you how we use that in a second. Notice over here also we have folders. These folders, you can create as many as you want. So I'm going to create a new folder called Receipts. I'm going to add that folder. I now have the ability, I can go back to my documents, and if I wanted to, I could take this Treasures Briefcase invoice and I can move it to my Receipts section. And now you'll notice on the Receipts is my Treasures Briefcase invoice. What we recommend is creating some standard folders that you're always going to need. You should have one called a permanent folder, which would have your IRS determination letter, any important contracts that you need to hang on to for a very long time, tax returns potentially, games of chance licenses, anything that you need to hang on to and be able to give to anybody at a moment's notice. You can also create folders for, in this case, the system automatically creates a folder for reconciliations. And remember earlier we did the bank reconciliation. I'm going to go to that folder. And when I printed that bank reconciliation, it actually printed it to my folder. And it basically shows me my bank balance, my outstanding deposits, outstanding checks, and what my ending balance was. So you'll always have a record of your bank recs in the system. You can add multiple documents to this. You can also move a document to trash if you wanted to. So I'm going to go to my documents. You can easily move a document to trash by just grabbing the document and move it into your trash bin. Now this is great to have these documents always here, but what's really impressive is we're going to go back to the checking account, and I'm going to show you. Remember we talked about editing an account. I'm going to show you the $179.95 Treasures Briefcase check that I wrote. I'm going to go into edit. I'm now going to attach a document. So I'm going to go to, it's going to go out to my system, and I'm going to click on my receipts, and I'm going to say, go ahead and attach that receipt. And now that receipt is permanently attached to this check. The beauty of that is the president, another board member that you give viewing rights to, has the ability to log in and at any point in time look at the actual bill that's associated with a check. So you'll always have a permanent record. If you're ever audited, or at year end when you do your internal audit, you'll have all the information right there at your fingertips. Okay. Now, last thing I want to show you is how to upload a document. You can also upload documents to yourself. So it's just like any other software product out there of uploading. You'll choose the file. You'll go out to a file. You'll upload it. Select on it. Then you can tell the system what folder you want. So if you have a good system of putting folders, you can tell which folder you want that document uploaded to, and it'll move that document in. It's telling me it's going to take, the system takes about 2 or 3 minutes to get that document there because it goes through an encryption process. Okay, so we threw a lot at you tonight, and like I said, we probably could spend really 2 or 3 hours on this. What we've tried to do is give you a quick tour, and as mentioned on our website, eventually we're going to have, in the next couple of months, we're going to have quick 1 to 5 minute tutorials. For instance, a tutorial will show you how to upload your logo, a more in-depth tutorial on bank recs. So you'll have plenty of options to get support. We're going to also have future webinars that I believe we have 7 more scheduled for the rest of this year, and then throughout next year we'll be loading more. Again, they'll always be recorded. They'll always be on our website available for you. Don't forget, if you're a standard subscriber, you get phone support as well as email support. Often at times it's best to just pick up the phone and call somebody and tell them the answer. It tends to go quicker. So if you're a standard subscriber, we do offer phone support. If you're a trial or budget subscriber, we give you email support. And then, of course, you can always go to our website and go to the resource section or the FAQ section of the website to get details. So again, if you're on the main page, we have a resource section that gives you a bunch of good information on filing requirements. And there's also an FAQ section that answers a bunch of frequently asked questions for you. So at this point, I think we are done and ready for questions if anybody has any questions out there. Anybody with questions at all, feel free to type in a question. If not, again, this program will be appearing on our website, and will be recorded there on the website. And
Dave,
okay.
awesome job, Dave.
Okay, so yeah, it was. I do have one question. It's just making sure the documents are secure. They are secure. If actually one of our IT guys was online, I don't know if he still is. He could probably answer that question a little bit clearer. I'm gonna open up the mic for him, and he can just kind of describe where these documents actually are, how secure they are, just to put your mind at ease. Rob, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
All of our documents are encrypted. They are stored securely on the cloud. As Dave mentioned, in order to access them, your users are going to need a PIN. Only certain roles are allowed to look at your documents. So you have also the ability to set roles for your users to make sure that only the people that you want to see your documents can see your documents. But again, all the documents are encrypted as they're being uploaded to the website. The website uses encryption to communicate, as well as to store your documents. So they're actually encrypted while they're in transit to the website and when they're stored on our website. I think that's pretty good overview of our briefcase security, Dave.
Okay, great. And I don't see any other questions, but as we didn't show a slide on it, but through our software, many of you probably have found it already. There's a contact us page. Just click on contact us and you'll be able to send an email, and you'll actually be able to drill down and describe your actual question in a little more detail, whether it's a accounting or tax question, or whether it's a true software functionality question. You'll be able to ask that question. If we have no other questions, I think that's it for the evening. So thank you, everybody.
Okay, you didn't need me.